Ah, the Disney Renaissance, that magical time when Disney woke up and remembered a few key things. Songs that establish character motivations early in the movie. Yeah, those are kind of crucial. Classic fairy tales? People dig those. Fun, unusual settings, like Atlantica, African Savannah, Agrabah. Rich themes like self-discovery and figuring out who in the world you are. And audiences, they ate it up. The box office numbers went through the roof. Let's do a little inflation-adjusted math, just for fun. Compare movies like Robin Hood, The Rescuers, The Fox and the Hound, The Black Cauldron, The Great Mouse Detective, Oliver and Company, to these blockbusters. The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King. Boom. We're talking an almost 6 times increase in box office returns. 6 times! And then there's the outlier, the red-haired stepchild, the movie I haven't mentioned yet. Just look at the numbers. A measly 69 million, adjusted for inflation. That's like 95% less than all the other Renaissance hits. Ouch. It's like that clip episode that people pass over on a binge watch of a TV show. And yeah, you can blame the boneheaded decision to release it at the same time as Home Alone. Seriously, Disney, what were you thinking? But even after that initial faceplant, the movie didn't exactly catch fire on home video or streaming. It's just there. So the big question is, should The Rescuers Down Under be considered an underrated gem, a hidden masterpiece unfairly ignored? Or were audiences cleverly avoiding a retread, a cash grab sequel that just didn't deliver? Let's dive in, shall we? Because I have thoughts. Oh, do I have thoughts? Okay, out of context, a sequel to The Rescuers might seem random. Like, why? But remember, this was pre-Disney Plus, pre-streaming, everything. Disney used to make a killing on re-releases. They'd dust off the old classics, throw them back at theaters, and rake in the dough. And The Rescuers, unlike some of the other, shall we say, lesser Disney films of the 1970s, had 2 successful re-releases, bringing to a total of $169 million worldwide, or about 76 million tickets sold. And at today's ticket prices, that would be like an $848 million haul. More than Moana. Sometimes it's easy to forget that pre-Eisner, pre-Disney being marketing geniuses that could merchandise an armchair in one background shot of one scene, that The Rescuers was a big deal. It wouldn't be until Oliver and Company that Disney would hit those numbers again. And Rescuers Down Under was already in production before The Little Mermaid was even finished. It was a sure thing. Or so they thought. Because again, re-releases, before anyone had a VCR and could watch movies whenever they wanted. Seems obvious now, but back then Rescuers Down Under was the safest bet box office-wise. And then The Little Mermaid came along and bulldozed the kingdom. Suddenly, Rescuers Down Under looked like tired old Disney, which is probably why Disney more or less buried the movie in a Treasure Planet let's pretend this never happened sort of way after its disastrous opening weekend. And it's been largely forgotten ever since. One of the reasons why this happened the original Rescuers had mostly background songs, kind of like Tarzan or Toy Story. Except for Rescue Aid Society, which is more of a cute little ditty, nobody's belting out showstoppers on screen. It keeps things a bit more grounded, a bit more real, and it totally let them use those pop-style vocals for Penny's thoughts, which actually works rather well with the contemporary setting. Rescuers Down Under ditches the songs entirely. Now, don't get me wrong, the Bruce Broughton score is phenomenal. It's epic, sweeping, adventurous, but the lack of songs, it makes the movie stand out, and not in a good way, especially when you consider that the recent hits The Little Mermaid and even Oliver and Company had amazing soundtracks. There's no reason why this movie couldn't have had some killer tunes. It would have given it more of a shelf life. Oh, that's that movie with that song, kind of thing, like Pete's Dragon and Candle on the Water. And more importantly, songs give us emotional insight into the characters. Which leads me to... Okay, The Rescuers isn't exactly known for its breathtaking character journeys, but it had some character arcs. Penny starts off as this hopeless, lonely little girl, and by the end, she's actively part of her own escape. And when she gets adopted, you're cheering right along with her. It's earned. Cody, on the other hand, is already pretty Gary Stu capable. He can climb a rock face that looks like it's, 700 feet tall, and he's already figuring out how to potentially escape his cage. So are we really that worried about him? And more importantly, Bernard. He had went through a fun little arc in the first movie. He started out as a janitor, a nobody. He showed concern, got braver, and became a hero alongside Bianca. Rescuers Down Under tries to give him a retread sort of arc with the constantly delaying proposal thing, but it's weak. We all know Bianca's gonna say yes, and he's not even that nervous about it anyway. He's totally ready to pop the question, he just keeps getting interrupted. So it's more of an external problem, not an internal character flaw he has to overcome. There's a tiny moment where Bernard bosses around a razorback, but we've seen him be brave before, and Bianca already believed in him despite Jake's skepticism. And yet the whole Jake flirting with Bianca thing, it doesn't even explain any of Bernard's real weaknesses. Jake isn't intimidatingly charming or brave or anything, really. And the character interaction is strange. Ultimately, the biggest thing they do is Bernard helps save Cody from drowning. Which, by the way, am I really supposed to believe that Bernard, a mouse, has the strength to pull a boy out of the water and fix him to a thorn? I know, it's a cartoon. But even cartoons need to have some basic internal logic, right? Well, they needed a climax. Which brings me to the biggest problem. Okay, screenwriting 101. You got your 3-act structure. The catalyst moment kicks us into Act 2, and the dark moment throws us into Act 3. But sometimes you get what's known as a second act sag. It's that middle part where we're just kind of waiting for the inevitable failure, waiting for the hero to get their act together. It's been said a million times, but the beginning of this movie is good, like ridiculously, stunningly good. Those breathtaking shots of Cody and Marahute soaring through the air, some of the best animation in the entire Disney canon. Seriously, it's that good. And yet, the movie never reaches those heights again. It's like they blew their entire budget on the first 5 minutes, and then we're like, okay, now what? Why create such an amazing opening, only to tread water for an hour and then end with some funnish action, but nothing on the level of that intro? It's like the waiter stunning you with an amazing appetizer and then giving you stale bread for the main course. Let's compare the middle of this movie to some other Disney Renaissance classics. For example, in Beauty and the Beast, Belle gets to the castle. We have Be Our Guest. We have a wolf attack. Something there. The iconic ballroom scene. The Beast lets Belle go. In Aladdin gets the magic lamp. Friend Like Me. Prince Ali. A Whole New World. Jafar finds the lamp. And then we have Rescuers Down Under. Bernard and Bianca travel to Australia. Wilbur deals with the psychotic mouse hospital. Kobe attempts to escape and fails. McLeach lets him out as a trick. Bianca and Jake get separated from Bernard. Bernard gets tough with a razorback. There's just not much happening. Wilbur's whole hospital subplot, it's funny, but it doesn't really add anything to the story. It's just filler. We're introduced to this goofy frilled lizard named Prank, and we get this prolonged escape attempt scene that goes nowhere. And get this, we never even see those animals again. It's like they were just written out of the movie halfway through. Now, I'm not saying they should have brought back Frank for a revenge scene with McLeach. Okay, maybe I am saying that. That sounds super awesome. But seriously, unlike the swamp folk and the first rescuers who actually help in the climax, these animals are just gone. Did they run out of time? The movie's already super short. The middle is, yeah, and it's sandwiched between that amazing opening and a decent-ish ending. It's a sag. Alright, continuing with story structure. Most Disney movies follow the basic beats of a good story. You know, like the ones outlined in Save the Cat. And yeah, you can get all formulaic about it, but those beats work. They help us figure out why some stories resonate and others don't. In the case of Rescuers Down Under, there are 2 key beats that are basically missing. It makes a huge difference. First, there's the debate or the refusal of the call beat. In the original Rescuers, Bernard actually suggests that the mission is too dangerous for Bianca. He questions it. It adds suspense. It makes us wonder, is this really going to work? Are they going to make it? In Rescuers Down Under, Bernard is basically dragged into the situation, and nobody ever really questions how risky it is. There's no sense of stakes, so who cares? The other missing beat? In the original Rescuers, there's this beautiful little moment where Bernard and Bianca are about to give up. It all seems hopeless. And then they remember the Rescue Aid Society motto, and they rally. It's a turning point. In Rescuers Down Under, the closest we get is Cody being worried and Bianca looking out nervously, waiting for Bernard. It's just weak. Doesn't change anything for the characters. It's not a moment. Okay, alright, I've been giving my gripes on the movie, but here's the thing. I actually really like Rescuers Down Under. It's great fun. It's beautiful. And I'm not alone, it has fans. As much as I can point out all these flaws, they don't bother me, and that's because, at its heart, the movie is just a straight-up action flick. It just goes from one crazy sequence to the next fast enough that you don't really notice that nothing is happening in the middle. Here's why I think it still works, despite everything. That eagle flight is epic. Period. End of discussion. The score, as I mentioned, is fantastic. It's sweeping, adventurous, and elevates every scene. The animation in general is gorgeous. I especially love the character animation in that opening dining scene. So much personality. The voice acting is terrific. John Candy is hilarious as Wilbur, and George C. Scott is perfectly menacing as McLeach. It's fast-paced, it keeps your attention. Even the scenes that don't really add to the plot are still fun and engaging. I love the idea of a second restaurant on top of a chandelier. It's clever! And yes, that eagle flight. Is Rescuers Down Under an underrated masterpiece on the level of Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin? And no, let's be real. But I do think it's a much stronger entry than some of the other more fondly remembered and merchandised Disney films like, say, The Aristocats. And it's definitely worth watching. Yes, for that amazing eagle flight sequence, but also for the overall spectacle and the sheer fun of it all. It's a flawed, muddled, but ultimately enjoyable adventure. Check it out.